As I look around, I see things that remind me.
Some voices change the world, but every story has a final chapter. These women gave us everything. Decades of hits, sold-out stages, timeless songs. But something shifted. The voice, the energy, the magic.
Who else am I gonna lean on when times get rough? Who's gonna talk to me?
And now, fans are asking hard questions. What if your favorite singer already gave her best performance years ago? 10 legendary women. One honest conversation. This is not about hate. This is about legacy. Who made our list and why? Stay with us. Number 10. Dionne Warwick.
And I never thought I'd feel this way.
Let us start at number 10. And we are starting with someone who is basically R&B royalty. You already know who Dionne Warwick is.
And as far as I'm concerned, I'm glad.
If you are 45 or older, this woman was the soundtrack to some of the most important moments of your life. Sunday dinners, long car rides, slow dances at somebody's house party where the lights were turned way down low.
I got the chance to say that I do.
Dionne Warwick and Burt Bacharach built something together that was almost impossible to describe. It was not just pop. It was not just soul. It was something in between. Something warm and aching and beautiful all at once.
Believe I love you. And
Walk On By came out in 1964. Produced by Burt Bacharach, arranged with those signature strings and that gentle but heartbreaking melody. Released on Scepter Records. And that song did not just chart. It became a feeling. It became a moment you could close your eyes and step back into.
I should ever go away. Well, then close.
Through the 60s and 70s, Dionne was untouchable. She had this sophisticated grace, this quiet power. She did not need to shout. She did not need to perform gymnastics on stage. She just stood there and sang, and that was enough.
Close your eyes and try. Feel the way we do.
Here is something a lot of people do not know. Dionne Warwick was one of the first black female artists to consistently cross over to mainstream pop radio without losing her core black audience.
Today. And then if you can remember.
That was not easy to do in the 60s. Labels were pulling artists in different directions. Radio programmers had their own ideas about what black music was supposed to sound like, and Dionne just kept being herself.
Keep smiling.
But here is where we have to have the honest conversation. In recent years, Dionne has been in the public eye again, and we are glad she is alive and well and still sharp.
Keep shining, knowing you can always.
But some of her recent performances have left fans feeling a little heartbroken. The voice is not what it was. And that is not an insult. That is just time doing what time does.
Count on me, for sure.
The sad part is that some of those performances have been shared online. And instead of celebrating her legacy, people are commenting about the wrong things. And that is not fair to a woman of her stature.
That's what friends are for.
Her legacy deserves to be protected. And sometimes, protecting your legacy means stepping back before the internet gets the chance to define your final chapter.
For good times and bad times, I'll be on your.
Dionne Warwick gave us over 5 decades of pure excellence. She does not owe anyone another performance. She has already given us everything. Hold on to that thought, because the next name on this list gave us some of the most emotionally raw music of the 1980s, and her story has a heartbreak in it that most people never even knew about. Number 9. Anita Baker. And if you were a grown person in the mid-80s, this name alone is going to stop you in your tracks. Anita Baker. Just say that name out loud for a second. Anita Baker.
Baby, stay with me and do
There was a moment in 1986 when that woman's voice was everywhere. And not in a commercial, overplayed kind of way. In the kind of way where you would hear it through someone's window and just stop walking. Just stop everything. And listen. Rapture was the album. And Sweet Love was the song that changed everything. Produced by Michael J. Powell and recorded at Hollywood Sound Recorders in Los Angeles. Released on Elektra Records in 1986. That song went to #1 on the R&B chart and crossed over to pop in a way that felt completely natural because the song was just that good. The lyrics talked about love in a way that felt adult, real, like something you had actually lived through. Not teenage romance, grown love, the kind that costs you something. Anita Baker went on to win 8 Grammy Awards. 8! And she won them across multiple decades, which tells you that this was not a flash in the pan. This was sustained greatness. Here is the fun part that most people do not know. Before Rapture, Anita was actually dropped by her first label, Beverly Glenn Music, after her debut album. The label had financial issues, and there was a whole legal dispute over her contract. She fought her way back. She got to Elektra, and then she made Rapture, and the rest is history. But the real drama, the story that has followed Anita Baker for years, is the ownership dispute over her masters. For a long time, Anita was in a very public battle over her master recordings. She asked her fans, directly on social media, to stop streaming her music. She wanted those streams to stop going to people she felt should not be profiting from her work. That is a heavy thing to carry, and it affected how her catalog was shared, streamed, and celebrated. When the master's situation was finally resolved and she got her recordings back, it was a big moment, a real victory. But then came the comeback shows. And fans who went with love in their hearts came back with mixed feelings. The voice that once floated effortlessly through those jazzy, soulful runs was working harder now. You could hear the effort. And effort is not what Anita Baker ever sounded like. Her prime was so perfect that anything less feels like a contradiction. She is a legend. Full stop. And legends deserve endings that match their greatness. If you are enjoying this video right now, smash that like button. We are just getting started and it only gets deeper from here. The next singer on this list is someone who broke barriers in a way that most people do not even credit her for. And her voice in her prime could make you feel like you were standing in church even if you had never been inside one.
If this song just hit you in that quiet place, don't let this moment be a one-time thing. Subscribe to Demo. We're building a home for real R&B and soul. The kind that heals, the kind that tells the truth. Hit subscribe and come back whenever you need a song that understands you.
Every story you see here takes hours of digging, piecing together history, and bringing forgotten moments back to life. If you'd like to support that work, you can become a channel member. It's just the cost of a cup of coffee, but it helps us keep these stories alive, and for that, we're grateful. Number 8. Patti LaBelle. And this woman right here is one of the most gifted vocalists to ever walk onto a stage. Period. No debate. Patti LaBelle. Now, if you are 45 or older, you have probably seen Patti LaBelle perform live at some point, and you know exactly what that experience feels like. It is not just a concert. It is a church service, a party, a therapy session, and a fashion show all at the same time. In her prime, Patti LaBelle could do things with her voice that trained singers still cannot explain. Those high notes, those runs, that raw, open, emotional delivery that made you feel like she was singing directly to your soul.
Somebody loves you, baby.
If Only You Knew came out in 1983, produced by Bunny Sigler and released on Philadelphia International Records. That song went to #1 on the R&B chart, and it stayed there. The lyrics were about longing, about loving someone who does not know how you feel. And Patti delivered every single word like she meant it with her whole body. She had come from the group LaBelle, which was groundbreaking in its own right. Black women in glam rock costumes, singing songs that were bold and sexual and unapologetic. That was radical in the early 70s. And then she went solo and became even bigger. Here is a fun fact. Lady Marmalade, which most people now associate with the Moulin Rouge version from 2001, was originally recorded by LaBelle in 1974. LaBelle's version went to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. It was produced by Alan Toussaint and recorded in New Orleans.
It happened so suddenly.
And it was scandalous. Radio stations were nervous about it, but it sold. And it became one of the most covered songs in pop history. But here is the conversation we need to have.
I woke up one morning with you.
Patti LaBelle has continued to tour and perform well into her 70s. And she is beloved. The audiences love her. But there have been moments, captured on video and shared widely, where the voice does not land the way it used to. Those high notes that once seemed effortless are now a genuine physical struggle.
On my mind, no matter.
And here is what makes it complicated. Patti LaBelle has diabetes. She has managed it publicly and courageously for years. And that is a health challenge that affects the body in ways that performing at that level only makes harder.
What I did, couldn't stop thinking about.
There is also the business side. Patti LaBelle has a successful food brand. Patti's Good Life sweet potato pies became a viral sensation. She has a restaurant. She has built something real outside of music.
You want an instant replay of yesterday.
She does not need to keep performing to prove anything. She proved it all already. Patti LaBelle is a giant, and giants deserve to rest on the foundation they built. Stay with me, because the next name on this list is one that might surprise you. She is not from the classic era. She came up a little later, but her talent was so undeniable that when things started to shift, it felt personal to everyone who had followed her from the beginning. Number 7, Mary J. Blige.
Let's get it crunk up on that fun up in this town.
And this one is going to feel different, because this is not just about an artist. This is about a whole generation of people who grew up alongside her. Mary J. Blige.
Sorry, we got y'all open, now you're floating, so you got to.
If you were in your 20s in the early 90s, Mary J. Blige was not just music to you. She was a mirror. She was saying the things you felt but did not know how to say. She was dressed the way you dressed. She was going through the things you were going through. And she was doing it all in front of the whole world.
Dance for me, don't need no hateration, holleration.
Real Love came out in 1992, produced by Mark C. Rooney and Dave Hall, released on Uptown Records. That song sampled Keep On by the Fatback Band, and it hit the R&B chart like a force of nature. The lyrics were about wanting something real in a world full of games, and every person who heard it knew exactly what she meant. What's the 411 was the debut album, and it basically invented what we now call hip-hop soul. It merged the rawness of hip-hop with the emotion of classic soul and R&B, and Mary J. Blige was the face of that movement. She was the queen of hip-hop soul. That was not just a nickname. That was a title she earned.
Just dance for me. Come on, everybody, get on down. 'Cause you know we got to get.
Here is something beautiful that a lot of younger fans do not know. The production on that first album was handled largely by Diddy, who was then known as Puff Daddy, along with Dave Hall and other in-house producers at Uptown Records. The label was a powerhouse at the time, and they had the instinct to let Mary just be herself. That authenticity is what made the album iconic.
Mary J is in the spot tonight, and I'ma make you feel alright.
But here is the hard truth. Mary J. Blige has had one of the most publicly documented personal journeys in music history. Substance struggles, a painful marriage and divorce, financial problems, legal battles. She turned all of that pain into music.
Make you feel alright. Come on, baby, just party with me. Let loose and say.
And for a long time, that worked. Albums like My Life and Share My World and The Breakthrough were emotional masterpieces because the pain was real.
Get your body free. Leave your situations at the door, so when you step inside.
But there comes a point where the audience starts to wonder if the story has moved forward, if there is something new to say. And some of Mary's recent work has felt like it is trying to recapture a feeling rather than create a new one.
Jump on the floor. Let's get it crunk up on it, crunk up.
Her recent tours have also drawn some quiet concern from longtime fans. The voice is still powerful, but it is not consistent the way it once was. And sometimes the energy of a performance can mask what is happening vocally in a way that a studio recording cannot. But maybe the next chapter of her story belongs off the stage.
So you got to dance for me. Don't need no hateration. Holler.
Now keep watching, because we are about to get into an artist whose story has a twist that most people never even knew about. And when we get to the controversy segment later, we are going to go deep on something that changed the course of one of these artists' careers in a way that was never fully explained to the public. Number 6. Gladys Knight.
Gave you the best.
And this woman right here is one of the most dignified performers in the entire history of American music. Gladys Knight.
Years of my life and I gave you.
Just think about that voice for a moment. That warm, round, full voice that wraps around a song like it was made for it. Gladys Knight never had to try to be soulful. She just was. From the very first note to the very last, she was soul in its purest form.
You woman who stood by your side through.
Midnight Train to Georgia came out in 1973, and if you do not feel something when that song comes on, then I genuinely want to know what is going on with your heart. Produced by Toni Camillo and released on Buddha Records.
All your ups and downs, your rights and all.
The song was actually written by Jim Weatherly and was originally called Midnight Plane to Houston. It was about a completely different story. But when Gladys Knight and the Pips got hold of it, they turned it into something timeless.
All your wrongs, and God knows.
The song went to number 1 on both the pop and R&B charts. It won the Grammy for Best Rhythm and Blues Song and Best Rhythm and Blues Vocal Performance by a Duo, Group, or Chorus in 1974. And it became one of those songs that every generation somehow knows.
There were wrongs. I should have been long.
Here is a fun fact that most people do not talk about. Gladys Knight and the Pips actually recorded for Motown before Midnight Train to Georgia. And they had hits there.
Gone, but when I made you that promise.
But the Motown machine had its own way of doing things. And there were moments where Gladys felt like the label was not fully investing in them the way they deserved. Moving to Buddha Records turned out to be the decision that gave them their biggest moment.
For better or worse, I said I.
Here is where the conversation gets honest. Gladys Knight is in her 80s now, and she is still performing. And every time she does, you can hear the love of the audience pouring back at her. That love is real. It is earned. It is deserved.
Stay by your side.
But the voice that once soared through neither one of us, and I've got to use my imagination, is not the same instrument it was. And that is okay. Instruments age. That is not a flaw. That is just life.
Swallow my pride, and now you're asking me to.
The concern is this. When an artist of Gladys Knight's stature performs at less than her best, it sometimes gives new audiences their first impression of her. And that first impression should be the recordings. The real recordings from her prime. Not a performance where she is working against her own age.
Understand, and I'm telling you, I can't.
Her legacy is sealed. It has been sealed for decades. She should be sitting somewhere beautiful, being celebrated, not still having to travel and perform and prove herself to people.
Why should I care about your feelings?
We are halfway through this list now. Which song or which story has hit you the hardest so far? Drop it in the comments below. I genuinely want to know what you are thinking right now. Number 5. Aretha Franklin, a tribute and an honest reflection. And I want to be very careful here, because this is not really about retirement in the traditional sense. Aretha Franklin passed away in August 2018, but her final years as a public performer are part of this conversation. And we would be dishonest if we left her out. Aretha Franklin is the greatest, not one of the greatest, the greatest. There is no debate on that. Respect came out in 1967, written by Otis Redding but transformed completely by Aretha, produced by Jerry Wexler at Atlantic Studios in New York. That song became an anthem, not just an R&B anthem, a civil rights anthem, a women's rights anthem, a human dignity anthem. And that was just one song. We have not even mentioned Natural Woman, You Make Me Feel Like a Natural Woman, written by Carole King and Jerry Goffin and shaped into something spiritual by Aretha. Or Chain of Fools. Or I Never Loved a Man the Way I Love You. Or Think. The range of her catalog is staggering. And her ability to move between gospel, soul, R&B, pop, jazz, and classical was something that no one has ever replicated. Here is the honest part. In her final years, Aretha Franklin's performances became inconsistent in a way that genuinely worried people who loved her. There were concerts where she was clearly not well, where the voice that had once been the most powerful instrument in popular music was struggling. And instead of those final performances being private or limited to small, understanding audiences, some of them became public events that were shared and discussed in ways that felt unkind. There is a lesson in that. And the lesson is this. When an artist has given what Aretha Franklin gave to music, to culture, to humanity, those final years deserve to be protected. They deserve dignity. And sometimes the industry, the bookings, the economics, the pressure to keep performing, they do not protect that dignity. They expose it. Aretha Franklin's final chapter should have been rest, should have been celebration, should have been her watching the world bow at her feet without having to sing another note to earn it. She deserved that. She more than earned that. We are going to take a breath here, because the next 4 entries are where things get even more personal. And at number 3, we are going to go into full detail about a controversy that has been floating around the music industry for years. something that involves label politics, career sabotage, and a decision that cost one of these artists a decade of her career. Stay right there. Number 4. Whitney Houston.
And
And this one is the hardest one to talk about, because Whitney Houston is no longer with us. She passed away in February 2012, but her story is the most important story in this entire video, because Whitney Houston's story is a warning.
we'll always love you.
In her prime, Whitney Houston was not just a singer, she was a phenomenon. She was what happened when genetics and training and timing and faith all came together in one human being. I Will Always Love You was originally written and recorded by Dolly Parton, but when Whitney recorded it for The Bodyguard soundtrack in 1992, produced by David Foster and released on Arista Records, it became something else entirely.
Love you.
That opening, unaccompanied note, that builds into something that just keeps climbing. That recording sold over 40 million copies worldwide as part of the soundtrack album. It became the best-selling soundtrack album of all time. And before The Bodyguard, there was her debut album in 1985, produced by Narada Michael Walden, Jermaine Jackson, and Michael Masser, released on Arista Records.
My darling, you.
It sold a part that matters for this video.
Bitter.
There came a point in Whitney Houston's career where it was clear to anyone watching that things had changed, that the voice that had been so effortless, so pure, so powerful, was under strain.
Sweet memories.
And that strain was visible in her performances, in interviews, in the way she carried herself. And the industry kept booking her. The labels kept releasing projects. The television networks kept putting her on camera.
That is all I'm taking.
And instead of people around her saying, "This woman needs rest, she needs care, she needs space to heal," the machine kept moving.
With me, so goodbye.
Her 2010 Nothing But Love tour was a turning point moment for fans. Bootleg recordings circulated, and instead of people rallying around her with love and support, the reaction online was often cruel.
Please don't cry.
She did not need another tour. She needed somebody to say, "Whitney, you have already given more than enough, come home." The industry failed her. The people around her failed her. And ultimately, the story ended in tragedy.
We both know I'm not what you.
Whitney Houston's legacy is eternal. Her voice, the voice of her prime, will never be forgotten. But what happened in those final years is a reminder of why this conversation matters. Artists need people around them who love them enough to say stop. Let us keep going, because number 3 is where we have been building to all video long. And the story I'm about to tell you is one that very few people have ever heard the full version of. Number 3, Toni Braxton.
Don't leave me in all this pain.
Now, if you are 45 or older, Toni Braxton is woven into your memory in a way that is almost impossible to separate from specific moments of your life. That voice, that low, smooth, aching voice, it was unlike anything else on radio in the 90s.
Don't leave me out in the rain. Come back and
Unbreak My Heart came out in 1996, written by Diane Warren and produced by David Foster, released on LaFace Records. That song went to number 1 in 25 countries.
bring back my smile. Come and take these tears away.
It was one of the best-selling singles of the 1990s globally, and it became one of the most recognized songs in the history of adult contemporary and R&B.
I need
Her debut album in 1993, produced by L.A., Reid and Babyface, was a masterpiece of quiet storm R&B. Another sad love song, Breathe Again, 7 Whole Days. Each of those songs hit differently.
The nights are so unkind.
They were not shouting at you, they were whispering. And somehow the whisper hit harder than a shout.
Bring back those nights when I held you beside.
She won 7 Grammy Awards. She was the first female artist to win consecutive Grammy Awards for Best R&B Album. But here is where we get into the part of her story that the music industry has never fully answered for.
Unbreak my heart.
Toni Braxton filed for bankruptcy in 1998, and then again in 2010. And when you look at why, you start to see a picture that is very uncomfortable.
Say you love me again.
In interviews, it has been said that Toni Braxton earned very little from the sales of her debut album, despite it selling millions of copies. There are different versions of what the contract terms were. Various interviews is that the royalty structure she was signed to at LaFace Records left her with very little of the revenue her music generated.
Walked out the door and walked out of my life.
Some people in the industry say that is just how the business worked in the early 90s. New artists often sign deals without fully understanding the long-term implications. Labels advanced money for recording, promotion, and touring. And those advances were recouped against royalties before the artist saw anything.
Cry these tears. I cried so many.
But others say what happened to Toni Braxton was more severe than the standard bad deal. That the gap between what her music earned and what she received was extreme. And that when she tried to renegotiate, there were consequences for her career. There are different versions of the story, but what is not disputed is the outcome. One of the best-selling R&B artists of the 1990s, a woman with multiple Grammy Awards, filed for bankruptcy twice. And what happened to her career after those financial struggles? It never fully recovered its commercial momentum. The album still came. The talent was still there. But the machine that had pushed her to the top of the charts was no longer working for her the way it once had. There is also the health dimension. Toni Braxton was diagnosed with lupus, and lupus is a serious autoimmune condition that affects the body in ways that make performing at a high level genuinely dangerous. She has been hospitalized because of it. She has had to cancel shows because of it. And yet, she keeps performing. She did the Las Vegas residency. She has continued to record.
Take back that said word goodbye.
Now here is the honest reflection. Some fans say that Toni Braxton at her current level is still better than most artists at their best. And they are not wrong. The tone is still there. The emotion is still there. But the health challenges are real.
Back the joy to my life. Don't leave me here.
And the financial pressures that kept her in the industry when she probably should have stepped back are a story about how the music industry treats its artists.
With these tears, come and kiss this pain away.
Toni Braxton should be resting. She should be healthy. She should be comfortable. The fact that she has had to keep working under circumstances that were never fair to her is not a testament to her dedication. It is a reflection of a system that took too much and gave too little.
I can't forget the day you left.
Her legacy is extraordinary. Her voice changed the sound of 90s R&B permanently, and she deserves to walk away with her head held high and her health intact.
Time is so unkind.
We are almost at the end. 2 more entries. And number 1 is going to be the most talked about moment in this entire video. I want you to take a breath before we get there. Number 2, Mariah Carey.
I didn't mean it when I said I didn't love you so. I should have held on to
And this is the name that a lot of you have been waiting for since the beginning of this video. Mariah Carey.
God, I never should've let you go. I didn't know nothing, I was stupid, I was foolish.
Let me be clear about something before we go any further. Mariah Carey's legacy in music is one of the most impressive in pop and R&B history. 18 #1 singles on the Billboard Hot 100.
I was lying to myself. I couldn't find.
More than any solo artist in history at the time, she achieved it. A voice that at its peak had a whistle register that other trained singers genuinely could not reach.
That would ever be without your love. Never imagined I'd be sitting here with.
Vision of Love came out in 1990, produced by Narada Michael Walden and Ben Margulies, released on Columbia Records. That debut single introduced the world to a voice that sounded almost impossible. Those runs, that control, that emotional vulnerability wrapped inside technical perfection.
By myself, 'cause I didn't know you, 'cause I didn't know me, but I thought I knew everything. I never.
She followed it with Fantasy, Always Be My Baby, We Belong Together, Hero. Each song was a statement. Each song proved that she was not just a voice. She was a songwriter, a producer, a creative force who understood exactly what she wanted her music to feel like. We Belong Together from 2005 is considered one of the greatest R&B songs of the 2000s. Produced by Jermaine Dupri, Manuel Seal, Brian Michael Cox, and Mariah herself. It won 2 Grammy Awards, including Song of the Year and Best R&B Song. Here is a fun fact that speaks to her real genius. MariahCarey.co wrote and co-produced the majority of her biggest hits. She was not just the voice, she was the architect. And at a time when the music industry was not always ready to let a black woman in that room, she fought her way in and stayed there. But here is where we have to be honest. The whistle register is gone. The 5-octave range that was once her calling card has narrowed significantly. And live performances over the last decade have ranged from inconsistent to genuinely difficult to watch for fans who remember what she was capable of. The New Year's Eve performance in 2016 inches Times Square became one of the most discussed live performance moments in the social media era. There were technical issues, but many music watchers said the problems were not entirely technical, and the way it was handled and discussed online was brutal. Mariah Carey has spoken publicly about her own health challenges, including a bipolar disorder diagnosis that she revealed in 2018. And that takes enormous courage. Managing a condition like that, while being one of the most scrutinized entertainers in the world, is something most of us cannot imagine.
Baby, please, 'cause we belong together. Who else am I gonna...
Her Christmas song, All I Want for Christmas Is You, from 1994, still generates enormous streaming revenue every single holiday season. It is one of the most streamed songs, and the performances keep coming. And every time there is a moment that does not land, the internet has something to say. And that commentary is affecting the way people remember her. Mariah Carey deserves to be remembered the way she sounds on We Belong Together, not the way a shaky live performance sounds on someone's phone video.
Who's gonna take your place? There ain't nobody better. Oh, baby.
She has given enough, more than enough. And now we are here. Number 1, take a breath, because this one is going to start a conversation.
If this song just hit you in that quiet place, don't let this moment be a one-time thing. Subscribe to Demo. We're building a home for real R&B and soul, the kind that heals, the kind that tells the truth. Hit subscribe and come back whenever you need a song that understands you.
Every story you see here takes hours of digging, piecing together history, and bringing forgotten moments back to life. If you'd like to support that work, you can become a channel member. It's just the cost of a cup of coffee, but it helps us keep these stories alive, and for that, we're grateful. Number 1, Diana Ross,
Since you've been away, I've been down and lonely.
And this is the most important name on this list, Diana Ross. Now, before you say anything, just listen, because what I am about to say is coming from a place of deep respect. The kind of respect that is only possible when you truly understand what this woman built.
Since you've been away, I've been thinking of you.
Diana Ross changed the architecture of what it meant to be a black female entertainer in America. Not just in music, in everything, in fashion, in film, in the way the world saw black women as stars.
Trying to understand the reason.
With the Supremes on Motown Records, working with producer Holland Dozier Holland at Hitsville, USA. In Detroit, Diana Ross helped create some of the most iconic recordings of the 1960s.
You left me, what were you going through?
Stop in the Name of Love. You Keep Me Hanging On. Where Did Our Love Go? These were not just hit songs. These were cultural moments that traveled around the world and opened doors for every black female artist who came after. And then her solo career. Ain't No Mountain High Enough, in 1970, produced by Nicholas Ashford and Valerie Simpson. Released on Motown Records, that arrangement, that building, that climax, unforgettable. Upside Down in 1980.
I'm missing you. Tell me why the road.
Produced by Nile Rodgers and Bernard Edwards from Chic. That song hit the disco and R&B world like electricity. It was #1 for 4 weeks on the Billboard Hot 100. It showed that Diana Ross could evolve with the times, could step into a new era, and come out on top.
Turns.
She was nominated for an Academy Award for her role in Lady Sings the Blues in 1972. She has a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. She received a Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award. The Kennedy Center honored her. She has received the Presidential Medal of Freedom.
I'm missing you. Tell me.
Here is something beautiful that connects directly to the whole point of this video. Diana Ross is reported to have once said that she never wanted to be perceived as anything less than the best version of herself. That pride in presentation, that commitment to a standard, is exactly what made her the icon she is.
Why the road turns.
But here is the honest conversation. Diana Ross is in her early 80s now, and she is still touring, still performing, still selling tickets, and the audiences who come out love her. They adore her. They would cheer for her if she just walked onto the stage and stood there. But the concerts are not what they once were, and that is okay for a human being. That is not okay for Diana Ross, the icon. There have been reviews of recent performances that have described the shows as short, under an hour in some cases. With backing tracks doing significant work, and audiences who paid significant amounts of money going home with mixed feelings. Not because they stopped loving Diana Ross, but because what they saw on stage did not match what they had hoped for.
As I look around, I see things that remind.
And here is the deeper issue. Diana Ross has a catalog that represents one of the most important chapters in the history of Black American music. The Supremes were the first Black act to have a #1 pop album. They were ambassadors. They walked into rooms that had never seen Black women at that level, and they changed the room.
Me, just to see a smile made my heart feel.
When Diana Ross performs at less than full capacity, it gives people who do not know that history a warped first impression. And the people who do know that history are left with something painful. A gap between the memory and the reality.
With joy, I still recall all those dreams.
She has earned the right to do absolutely nothing for the rest of her life except receive love. She has earned the right to sit in the front row while younger artists bow to her influence. She has earned the right to say, "I gave you everything and now I am choosing myself."
We shared together. Where did you run?
Diana Ross at number 1 on this list is not a criticism. It is a recognition. You do not put someone at number 1 because you think little of them. You put them at number 1 because their place in history is so large that the conversation about legacy matters more for them than for anyone else. She is the blueprint. And blueprints do not need to keep constructing buildings. The buildings stand on their own. Diana Ross, you changed the world, and the world will never forget what you did. You do not owe us another show.